Before your thoughts rush ahead, slow down for just a moment, because something delicate is unfolding around you right now, and if you move too quickly, you may miss the quiet truth hidden beneath it. There is someone who watches you with a tenderness they themselves do not fully understand yet. Not because you tried to capture their attention. Not because you changed yourself to become unforgettable. But because your presence reached a part of them that had been asleep for a very long time. And that is where this story truly begins, not with attraction, not with fantasy, but with the strange moment when a human heart realizes it can no longer look away from someone who feels different from everyone else it has ever known. Stay here for a little longer, because what they are struggling with is not what you think it is. There are nights when this person stares at old memories, replaying conversations with you in silence, hearing your laughter echo back in ways they never expected. They remember tiny details they pretend not to notice. The way your face changes when you become passionate about something. The way your eyes drift when you are lost in thought. The softness in your expression when nobody is watching. These details follow them everywhere. Quietly. Constantly. Almost unfairly. And yet, there is one thing they keep wrestling with deep inside themselves. One thing they never imagined would matter so much to them. Not because it makes you less beautiful, but because it forces them to confront something unfinished within their own heart. Listen carefully now, because this part matters. The world taught them to expect love to arrive wrapped in perfection. Smooth edges. Predictable beauty. Familiar patterns. They spent years convincing themselves they understood what they were supposed to want. But then you appeared, and suddenly their carefully built expectations started cracking in silence. Something about your appearance unsettled them at first, not in rejection, never in rejection, but in the way truth unsettles a person before it finally sets them free. You carry something real. Something human. Something impossible to copy. And they do not know how to explain why that authenticity pulls them closer even while it challenges the image they once believed they needed. Don't skip this moment, because the next realization changes everything. Sometimes they catch themselves comparing the version of beauty they were taught to admire, with the peace they actually feel when they look at you. And every single time, your presence wins. That is what confuses them. That is what keeps them awake longer than they admit. Because the part of them shaped by outside voices still whispers old expectations into their mind, while their soul keeps choosing you anyway. Again. And again. And again. They are beginning to realize that love was never supposed to feel artificial. It was supposed to feel safe. Honest. Alive. And somehow, every road keeps leading back to you. There was a moment recently, very recent, when they looked at your appearance differently than before. You may never know when it happened. Maybe it was during a photo they stared at too long. Maybe during a passing glance they tried to ignore. Maybe during a quiet conversation where your vulnerability reached them deeper than your appearance ever could. But something shifted. Suddenly the thing they once questioned became inseparable from what made you unforgettable. And that realization frightened them in the gentlest way possible. Because now this connection feels real enough to change them. You see, they are not struggling because they want someone else. They are struggling because loving you means releasing years of conditioning they never realized controlled them. It means accepting that genuine connection does not always arrive in the form they imagined. It means admitting that your uniqueness touches them more deeply than polished perfection ever could. And that truth is rearranging something inside them slowly, carefully, almost painfully softly. There are moments when they wish they could tell you everything openly. But every time they come close, emotion catches in their chest. They worry you will misunderstand their silence. They worry you will think they are distant when in reality they are overwhelmed by how deeply this connection has grown. Because what began as curiosity has become attachment. And what became attachment is now becoming something far more difficult to walk away from. Something important is waiting for you in this story, so stay till the end of this moment. This person notices how hard you have been on yourself sometimes. Yes, even the things you try to hide. They see the tiny hesitation in your confidence now and then. The way you sometimes compare yourself without speaking it aloud. And strangely, those moments make them love you more carefully, not less. Because beneath your appearance they recognize a heart that has survived disappointment without becoming cold. That matters to them more than they can explain. More than surface beauty ever could. But here is the part they have not fully admitted yet. The thing they are struggling to accept is becoming the exact thing they are falling in love with. Not because it fits a standard. Not because it impresses other people. But because it belongs to you. Entirely. Unrepeatably. And the closer they grow to your soul, the more impossible it becomes to separate your appearance from the comfort, warmth, and emotional safety they feel around you. They are beginning to understand that real attraction deepens when someone's presence starts feeling like home. And you, without realizing it, have already started becoming that feeling inside them. Yet there is still one final wall standing in front of their heart. A quiet wall. Invisible to almost everyone else. They are afraid that once they fully accept how much you mean to them, there will be no turning back. Because this is no longer temporary emotion. It is becoming part of who they are. And very soon, sooner than you think, something small is going to happen between you that forces them to stop hiding from what they truly feel. When that moment arrives, the way they look at you may never be the same again. There is something they have been doing in complete silence, something so small that nobody around them notices it, yet it has slowly become part of their everyday life. They search for you without meaning to. In crowded rooms. In passing conversations. Even in moments that have nothing to do with you at all. Your energy lingers in their mind longer than it should, and lately it has started affecting them in ways they can no longer control. Pause here for a second and really feel this, because the connection between you is no longer living only in curiosity. It is moving deeper now, into the part of the heart where denial becomes exhausting. A few days ago, they caught themselves staring at one specific detail about your appearance again. The same detail they once tried to push aside in their thoughts. But this time something unexpected happened. Instead of questioning it, they felt protective of it. Protective of you. And that realization shook them quietly. Because people do not become protective over things they merely admire. That instinct only appears when affection has already rooted itself far beneath the surface. They would never say this aloud yet, but there are moments when they feel guilty for ever hesitating at all. Not because you demanded perfection from them. Not because you forced them to explain themselves. But because the more they learn about your heart, the more foolish their old expectations begin to feel. You are teaching them something without even trying. Teaching them that real connection does not arrive polished and predictable. Sometimes it arrives gently, carrying imperfections that somehow make the bond feel even more alive. Don't look away from this part. Because something vulnerable is beginning to unfold. This person has spent years surrounded by voices telling them what beauty should look like. What attraction should feel like. What kind of person they were expected to choose someday. And without realizing it, those voices built invisible walls inside them. But your presence keeps slipping through every crack. Slowly. Patiently. Uninvited at first, and now completely impossible to remove. They remember moments with you more vividly than they remember faces they once chased desperately. Isn't that strange? The human heart always reveals its truth through what it cannot forget. And no matter how hard they try to organize their emotions logically, your memory keeps returning with warmth attached to it. That warmth frightens them a little, because it feels permanent. There is one memory in particular they replay often. You probably have no idea which moment it is. To you it may have seemed ordinary. But to them, it became the exact instant everything started changing. Maybe you smiled without trying. Maybe you looked tired and real instead of composed. Maybe you spoke honestly when others would have pretended. Whatever it was, something about your appearance in that moment felt deeply human to them. Not filtered. Not rehearsed. Just real. And strangely, that reality reached them harder than perfection ever has. Stay till the end. Because this next realization is quietly transforming them. They are beginning to understand that the thing they struggled with was never truly about you. It was about their fear of being seen choosing love differently than they once imagined. Their fear of letting go of an old image they had carried for years. But every time they picture a future that genuinely feels peaceful, your face appears in it naturally. Not edited. Not changed. Exactly as you are. And that terrifies them in the softest possible way. Because now they can no longer pretend this is temporary attraction. Temporary feelings fade when challenges appear. But there's only deepened. Even after confusion. Even after hesitation. Even after trying to convince themselves to think differently. Somewhere inside, they already know the truth, they are emotionally attached to you now. Deeply enough that your absence affects them. Deeply enough that your happiness matters to them. Deeply enough that they have started imagining what it would feel like to finally stop resisting this connection altogether. But there is still one thing they have not forgiven themselves for. Sometimes they worry you sense their hesitation. Sometimes they wonder if you noticed those brief moments when they pulled away emotionally, not because they lost interest, but because they were fighting an internal battle they did not know how to explain. They fear that if you knew the truth, you would misunderstand their struggle completely. Yet what they never realized is this: the very fact that they stayed, even while confused, says more than words ever could. Because people walk away quickly from connections that are shallow. They stayed. Even while trying to understand themselves. Even while wrestling with expectations they inherited from a world obsessed with appearances. Even while feeling their hearts slowly choose someone they never expected would impact them this deeply. And lately, something new has started happening. They have begun imagining introducing you to parts of their life they normally protect. Their private thoughts. Their future plans. Their softer side. That shift matters more than you know. Because when someone starts mentally placing you inside their future, it means the emotional walls are already weakening. Quietly. Irreversibly. There is a conversation coming soon, maybe not dramatic, maybe not loud, but meaningful enough to change the energy between you forever. In that moment, you may notice something different in the way they look at you. Less conflicted. Less distracted. More certain. Because the closer they move toward acceptance, the more clearly they begin seeing what was in front of them all along. And what they are finally starting to see is not a flaw. It is the exact reason their heart refuses to let you go. Tonight, while the world moves noisily around them, this person is sitting with thoughts they can no longer escape. Not dramatic thoughts, not chaotic ones, but the kind that arrive quietly and stay. The kind that change a person slowly from the inside. And somehow, every road in their mind keeps leading back to you. Back to your face. Your energy. Your presence. Back to the one thing they once questioned and now cannot stop thinking about in an entirely different way. Something is shifting inside them so deeply that even they are starting to notice it in unexpected moments. There was a time when they believed attraction was immediate certainty. Instant confidence. No confusion. No emotional complexity. But what they feel for you refuses to follow those rules. It grew in silence. It deepened in contradiction. And now it has become something far more dangerous to ignore, because it keeps surviving every attempt they make to reduce it into something simple. Listen carefully here, because this is where their heart finally starts revealing itself. Recently, someone made a casual comment about appearance around them. A meaningless conversation to everyone else. But the moment your image crossed their mind, something inside them reacted instinctively. Not defensively out of obligation, but protectively out of affection. And in that exact second, they realized they no longer see you through the eyes of other people. They see you emotionally now. Personally. Deeply. The version of you that exists in their heart has become more powerful than any outside expectation they once carried. That realization stayed with them longer than they expected. Because for the first time, they understood something they had been avoiding for weeks, maybe even longer. The feature they struggled to fully accept at first has become attached to everything they adore about you. Your warmth. Your honesty. Your softness. Your resilience. The way you make ordinary moments feel calm. They cannot separate one from the other anymore. And that changes everything. Don't skip this part, because they are closer to emotional surrender than ever before. There are nights when they replay your expressions in their mind without even realizing it. Not perfect expressions. Not posed ones. The real ones. The tired look you try to hide sometimes. The vulnerable moments when your confidence flickers for a second. The little imperfections you notice in yourself before anyone else does. To them, those moments no longer feel like flaws. They feel intimate. Human. Trustworthy. Real in a world that often feels painfully artificial. And that authenticity is becoming addictive to them. What confuses them most is this: they have met people who matched every expectation they once thought they wanted. But those connections faded quickly. They looked beautiful on the surface yet left no emotional imprint behind. Meanwhile you, without forcing anything, somehow reached the quietest parts of them. The parts they normally keep guarded. The parts that do not awaken easily. Something important is waiting inside this realization, so stay a little longer. They are beginning to recognize that your appearance carries emotional meaning to them now. Not because of perfection, but because every detail reminds them of how safe they feel around you emotionally. Your face no longer exists separately in their mind from the comfort they experience in your presence. And once attraction becomes emotional like that, it changes permanently. That is why they have become quieter lately. Not less interested. Not distant. Just overwhelmed by the depth of what is happening inside them. Because now they are starting to understand that this connection could become real enough to transform their life completely. And with that understanding comes fear. Not fear of you, but fear of vulnerability. Fear of finally admitting that someone they never expected has become emotionally irreplaceable to them. There is one secret they would never confess openly right now. Sometimes they look at your photos longer than they mean to. Not searching for flaws anymore. Searching for comfort. Searching for the feeling they get when they see you being unapologetically yourself. They zoom into tiny details without realizing it. The way your eyes hold emotion. The softness in your smile. The uniqueness they once struggled to understand and now secretly hope never changes. Because if you changed too much, you would stop feeling like you. And the truth is, they do not want a different version of you anymore. They want the version that exists right now. The version that feels honest. The version that carries both confidence and insecurity at the same time. The version whose appearance slowly became tied to emotions they cannot replace. This next part matters more than you realize. Very soon, they are going to stop comparing you to impossible standards in their mind. That cycle is already weakening. Every emotional moment with you pulls them further away from those old expectations and closer toward acceptance. Real acceptance. The kind that feels peaceful instead of forced. And when that shift fully happens, you are going to notice it immediately. The hesitation in their eyes will disappear. The inconsistency will soften. Their attention toward you will become calmer, steadier, more intentional. Because they are approaching a moment where they finally understand something life has been trying to teach them through you all along. Love becomes real when someone's presence starts feeling more beautiful than perfection itself. And once they fully accept that truth, they may never look at you the same way again. Something changed inside them after the last time they thought about losing you. Not losing you dramatically, not through some loud ending, but through distance. Silence. Timing. The possibility that you might slowly stop caring one day if they continue hiding their feelings behind confusion. That thought stayed with them longer than expected. Longer than comfort allows. And for the first time, they stopped asking themselves whether your appearance matched old expectations, and started asking something much deeper instead. Why does the idea of this person leaving hurt me so much? The answer arrived quietly, but once it arrived, it could not be undone. Because this was never truly about appearance. It was about emotional surrender. And they are finally beginning to understand the difference. Stay with this feeling for a moment, because the next part is unfolding softly, like a truth they were never ready to face until now. There are certain people who enter someone's life beautifully but temporarily. Easy connections. Predictable chemistry. Surface-level attraction that disappears the moment real vulnerability appears. But you unsettled them differently. You made them feel seen in moments they did not expect. And the more emotionally connected they became, the more their old standards began losing power over them. Slowly at first. Then all at once. Now when they think about you, their mind no longer isolates one feature or one detail. They think about your entire presence. The feeling of you. The emotional atmosphere you carry into a room without even trying. Your appearance became part of that atmosphere naturally, woven into everything they feel when they are near you. And that realization has become impossible for them to escape. Don't skip ahead mentally, because there is something fragile happening inside their heart right now. Recently, they noticed themselves smiling while remembering one of your imperfections. Not tolerating it. Not overlooking it. Smiling because it felt uniquely yours. That moment caught them off guard completely. It was small, almost invisible, yet emotionally enormous. Because people do not smile at the thought of something they secretly dislike. They smile at things that have become emotionally precious to them. That is the truth they are approaching now. You are becoming precious to them. Not in a distant fantasy way. Not in a temporary fascination. But in the quiet, terrifying way that changes how someone sees the future. Sometimes they wonder whether you realize how deeply your energy affects people. You may think others notice only the outside, but the people who truly connect with you feel something beyond that very quickly. And this person feels it more intensely than they admit. They feel warmth around you. Calm. Safety. A strange emotional honesty they rarely experience anymore. That honesty is healing something inside them they never talk about. Because beneath all their hesitation was a hidden fear they carried for years, the fear of choosing love that feels real over love that simply looks ideal from the outside. Society taught them to admire appearances loudly. But their soul, quietly, keeps choosing emotional depth instead. Choosing comfort instead. Choosing you. Something important is waiting in this realization. So stay till the end. They are starting to replay your conversations differently now. Before, they listened with curiosity. Now they listen with attachment. Every memory feels heavier emotionally. More meaningful. More alive. They notice tenderness in your voice they missed before. They notice how naturally you care about others. They notice the emotional beauty in you that slowly transformed the way they see your physical appearance altogether. And here is the part they are almost afraid to admit to themselves. The more emotionally attached they become, the more attractive you become in their eyes.